evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth, coming off the Motor City Madmouth show with George Richards, the publisher of Florida Hockey Now. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out that broadcast live, you should check it out because we talked a lot about the Panthers, and we talked a little bit about the Red Wings as well as some of the other teams as well. Glad to have our regular crew on tonight. Candy Epling, welcome to the big show.
Thank you, Scott. Great to be here.
JB Ellis is back again.
How's everybody doing?
All right, and George Eichhorn and I, founders of the Sports Exchange, alive and well. Welcome back, George.
That's right. We go back a lot of years. Good to be on tonight.
I know you were fulfilling an obligation with the Polish Sports Hall of Fame earlier. It's okay. We just substituted George Eichhorn for George Richards. I'd say, it was a good exchange, at least for tonight's programming. So with that said, let me give everybody an overview about what we're talking about, futility and its worth. I'm sure I could have more positive titles, but when you get the gist of the topics, you'll understand. Talk about the Seattle Mariners handling of Scott Servais. Joe Ellis gets to talk about the Chicago White Sox. Tua Tagovailoa, I got something interesting for him. And I have another inspirational RIP, which I'll get to in a moment. And then everybody will have an opportunity to talk about the college football game that they're looking forward to. And I want to go over a parting shot that Coach John Bonamego ended up making. And again, it'll be on, we'll go ahead and mention it on next week's edition of the Sports Exchange, or at least we'll try. Candy's working on making that as short right now, but I'll give you pretty much an opportunity to overview, in addition to the fact that it is on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel under Inside the Pigskin, graduating versus winning. All right, let's get to it. Former Seattle Mariners manager Scott Servais was part of the organization for 9 years and snapped a long playoff drought. He was fired off of X and Twitter. All right, Candy, we're going to lead off with you. There's lots of ways that you can go ahead and get let go, but I'm not so sure this is one that most people would like to be a part of.
Social media has no place for people to announce whether you're hired or fired on it. That's something you do in person. I don't care who you are. I don't care what's going on within the organization, within anything. I don't care if you pissed off everybody. Social media is not the place for that kind of announcement before you've told the actual individual. Have the decency to have the tough conversation, because obviously it is. Nobody likes to get fired, and nobody likes to be the person firing the person. Well, maybe some people take pleasure in that, but normally not.
Right.
And do it heads up, face to face. And then if you want to spew it all over social media, you can. But the first person is the person you're actually dealing with. Have the guts to have that conversation first.
George?
Yeah, he's 57 years old, and I don't care if you're 57 or you're 37 or you're 87. These kind of things cannot be handled through social media. Scott Servais is done well, coming over from the LA Dodgers, as I recall, and I know they've gone bottom up. Okay, I know things have been terrible for the Mariners this season, or the most recent part of the season, if you will, as their lead was blown and Houston's in first. But Scott is a baseball man. He's a good mind. He's a good teacher. Things didn't go exactly as they should, but like I said, no one deserves to be fired that way. Nobody should have to read about it in the old days, read about it in the newspaper, but in the new age, of course, it's social media. And despite the fact that he helped overcome a 21-year playoff drought a couple of years back, it's all about what have you done for me lately. Am I surprised he got fired? No, but I do not like the way it was handled, Scott, Candy, and JB.
All right, JB, good segue, George, over to JB Ellis. There's ways to get let go, and there's ways not to. It sounds like we've just looked at the way not to, Joe.
Listen, it was completely and utterly unprofessional. But on the other hand, when you're a manager of a team, you have a contract. Whether you get fired or not, unless it's for cause, which it wasn't for cause, he's going to get paid. It doesn't really matter how he got fired. Was it a bad move by the organization? Of course. But you know what? Scott Servais can laugh about it for the rest of the year until his contract is completely up and he gets the last paycheck, because he's the one that's going to be laughing because he's getting paid to do absolutely nothing. The fools that hired him and fired him don't know how to handle an organization.
Yeah.
So I'd actually, if I was him, be happy to be out of there and just keep taking my money, because the guy knows how to manage a baseball team. Just ran into some bad luck, but he'll still be getting his paycheck. So it doesn't matter how we got fired. If I was him, I'd keep my head up and say, you know what, I'm too good for you guys anyway.
Boy, I'll tell you, you just took the words right out of my mouth at a time when my voice needs a little bit of a break. You probably gave me a break on this first topic because you're going to lead off with the next one anyways. But I agree. There's certain ways to get let go, though. Social media, I agree, isn't one of them. But the bottom line is you're getting paid anyway. So I remember years ago when Larry Brown wanted to go to the New York Knicks, Bill Davidson gave him a $5 million check to get out of here. We don't need you anyways. And but that's beside the point. So I don't think social media is the way to do it. But then again, how many people, big name people, have been let go? But it's about taking the money. Seattle doesn't make the playoffs and they struggle and they go down badly. This is a move that they could bite them really badly later on. But hey, he's got the rest of the summer off. He can decide what he wants to do, and whatever's left on his contract, no problem. Work on your golf game, Scott, from one Scott to another. All right. With that said, JB Ellis goes ahead. We'll get the lead on it. He lives in the metropolitan Chicago area. I say metropolitan Chicago area. The White Sox became the second fastest team in modern MLB history to lose 100 games. What are your thoughts about that? This is strictly for you anyways.
Listen, this is a dysfunctional team. A couple of years ago, this team was a playoff team. I don't understand how it's fallen off so quickly. I get there's injuries. Guys have been hurt throughout the year. But, there comes a point where your team just has no heart and they're just not into playing baseball. Now, we just talked about how Scott Servais can laugh and take the money throughout the rest of the year. The problem is you can't fire players. You can demote them if they have options left, but otherwise they're getting paid to play, and they just don't have the heart to play, or they're not good enough anymore. And you can't just replace a whole organization. It's not like there's you go get some resumes and get new guys to come in. Not going to hire George to play first base for the White Sox tomorrow, look off his resume. It doesn't work that way. They're in trouble. This is just a bad organization. I mean, I'm not one that ever says maybe the owner should sell, but it's just dysfunction all over. You got to start somewhere, and maybe the owner needs to go. Maybe you need to replace the whole front office and, new coaching throughout the whole system from, A-ball through the majors. But something's got to be done because this is an embarrassment. I mean, I know they only have 3 fans anyway, but, this is a complete embarrassment.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think that one of the fastest teams to ever. Candy, do you have an opinion on this one at all about the White Sox? I know we addressed this on the baseball show, but what are your thoughts about what's going on the South Side?
It's sad to see because some of those are young players, and this is a bad look on them because if they're not putting everything into it, and if they've lost all their motivation, who would want them even next year? Like, let's say their contracts are up and stuff like that. Who's going to want them to be on their team? Because if they can't, I mean, you're not always going to win. I know baseball's a long season, and I know there's injuries. But the Chicago White Sox isn't the lowest payroll in the league. And I mean, no offense, the Miami Marlins are still playing, and they've been out of it for so long, but they still are interesting to watch and their rookies are really coming forward. They're really playing hard. I mean, that's one of the teams I can look at it. I can also look at it with the Milwaukee Brewers because you all know that I'm a Brewers fan. They've had numerous injuries, and they have a new coach, and yet look at they're doing rather well this year. I mean, I don't want to jinx it. Want to see them go far, but you got to have heart. You got to have a love of the game and play like you have a love for the game. Your job is to play a game. I would give me any of their salaries and I'd go out and play. any one of their salaries, I'd take it in a heartbeat and go out and play the game better and with more heart than they're playing.
Well, you're not like you're alone on the money side, Count. Come on, Candy, seriously. But here, the reason why the Marlins are at least playing hard is they have a manager, Skip Schumacher, who will get rehired in his second act, and the reason why the Brewers are relevant is because you got Pat Murphy, and when Craig Counsell left, all the coaches stayed with Murphy, and they didn't go to the Cubbies. So give me a break. That's continuity. I understand where you're coming from with the Brewers, but seriously. I mean, you got to have good coaches who we have, and let's face it, the Brewers do. I mean, evidently, Pat Murphy must have been a good salesman to keep them all there, while Craig Counsell has to literally start all over with the group that he had. But yeah, I'll get back to the original point. You're right, Joe. I know I made it exclusive to you, but then all of a sudden it got a little bit more interesting. The White Sox got some issues, and they have a lot of them. The question is, who would want that job, knowing the shape that it's in? Who knows how much they're going to offer him to take it? It's certainly a story that we're definitely going to follow. Go ahead, Candy.
Scott, you can talk all you want about salaries, but the White Sox, their total payroll is 117 million, and the Brewers is 94.
Okay.
And yet the Brewers are playing a heck of a lot better than the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, but if you want to sit here and get in a rebuttal with me over JB's topic, I can tell you right now that the Brewers front office has been far more competent than the White Sox the last several years. But the reality of the situation is, even though the White Sox are spending north of $100 million, reality is that's a dumpster fire there, and it's a job, that many people would think twice about. The only one that's been able to win there in recent years is Ozzie Guillen, and he ran himself out of baseball because he couldn't keep his mouth shut in Miami, talking about nationality that ran him out there, and the Marlins at the table. He hadn't been back. Ozzie Guillen's the only one that's been able to win there, but we'll leave it at that. So one more thing we're going to get to topic, and then Candy's going to do a station break. And this one here, to me, still blows my mind. Tua Tagovailoa criticized former Dolphins coach Brian Flores, comparing his negative coaching style to the supportive approach of current coach Mike McDaniel, which Tua credits for his improved performance. All right, JB, you know what? Tua Tagovailoa throwing his old coach under the bus. Some thoughts.
Listen, a lot of thoughts on this one. First thing is, Flores was horrible with the way he handled Tua. It was obviously that he didn't want him there. He would bench him late in games and put in Fitzpatrick when Tua was his starter and played, 2.5, 3 quarters in a close game. Oh, we're going to take the rookie out and we're going to put Fitzpatrick. And you don't do that. He has to learn how to play in those fourth quarters because he's going to be your guy 5-10 years from now. Fitzpatrick's going to be in a nursing home by then. Secondly, you break in the kid's confidence. And yet he just showed up for work the next day and the next day. And he did the same thing. And he just went out there and performed. So I give him a lot of credit. He's an ultimate pro. He handled things the way he should have. And he didn't bring this topic up back then when he should have brought it up when they benched him multiple times during games. Because I know I brought it up on my show every week when they did that. Secondly, McDaniels has shown that he has, confidence in him. He's the guy that's going to lead the offense, and he wants him to. And when you're a young quarterback who could be a future star, that's what you want in your head coach. You want to have that symmetry. You want to have the coach and the quarterback on the same page, kind of like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That's great when you're the quarterback and your coach believes in you. And, he's calling plays because he knows you can handle it. So, in Flores, it was obvious the guy didn't want him there, and he didn't know how to coach. And, good for Tua to say something. I don't think he was wrong for it. I don't think it affected his play last year. I just think he was asked a question. He answered it honestly. I think it's a non-story.
Fair enough. Candy, non-story or story, knowing that you throw your coach under the bus after the fact instead of doing it when he could have done it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said, because what he's saying is how he felt and what was said to him. not everybody is going to like the coach that you are playing for. Not everybody's going to agree. Not everybody works well with everybody. It's the same in any line of work. You have one of the things that they tell us as managers and stuff like that is people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. They leave people that are trying to lead them. If they don't get along with them, that's why they leave. And not everybody has the same coaching style. Some people like tough love. Some people don't. Some people need more encouragement. Sometimes it depends on where you are in your career, whether you need more micromanagement, more hands-on coaching. So is he wrong to do it? No. Brian Flores, some people were meant to be head coaches, and some people were meant to just be, assistant coaches, or on the defensive side or the, offensive side. I also think that as younger players are coming forward, and we all know this, people are way more vocal, but some people they can't take the tough, hard love as well. I think we all talk about how we have to be politically correct, and I get that. But I think this younger generation can't take some of the criticism that we doled out maybe 20, 30 years ago.
That's fair. George?
Well, it's a recipe for disaster when a coach, especially a head coach, and a star player don't get along. So this is a perfect textbook example of what went wrong. He was only 19 and 14 the years that Tua and Flores were together down in Miami, and things have turned around now. He really blossomed the last year or two, but I think they both have to take lessons from this. It's very difficult to to recover from a war of words such as that. And it's not to say that they don't have a right to speak. Of course they do. But I think you'll see a common thread in most of the winning programs in the NFL. And that is that people get along, or at least they have the respect for one another. You look at the Don Shulas of the world, and the George Halas and the Vince Lombardis and great coaches like that. I mean, you don't see that kind of bickering back and forth with your players. Now, both sides they both have a stake in this, obviously. Tua knows that he probably talked a little bit too much, but Flores knows too. In his new role with Minnesota, he realizes that he's not the head coach, but you still got to have the respect of your players that you're coaching. And if you don't, you're in big trouble. So I wish Flores well, but I know he realizes that some things that were said and comments that were made on both sides were not appropriate in order to establish a winning combination down there in Miami.
Well, let's face the reality. Bill Belichick coaching tree hasn't really outperformed anything either. I mean, how many of them have really gone on to do anything?
Yeah.
The closest one that I thought did anything was Bill O'Brien, and he did it with the Houston Texans. Now, to Flores' defense, okay, Kevin O'Connell says, because that's who his current employer says, he gets along with all of his people. So whatever happened down there, he certainly have every right to defend the guy that he's working for. Now, will this prevent Brian Flores getting a future head coaching job? You never know, because nowadays you see a lot of younger quarterbacks in the league. So if he handled Tua this way, is he going to handle the next guy? And that's where you have a bit of a dysfunction here about how it goes. I just didn't like Tua calling out Flores in public. If you really, to me, had something to say to him, somewhere along the lines, you got to arrange a meeting, Zoom call or whatever, and get it out there. But, let's face the reality, though. Tua just he got a contract extension as well, so he can thank Mike McDaniel that. And I can assure you one thing, that Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa will not be exchanging any Christmas cards anytime soon. But the one thing that we are going to do is give it over to Candy Ebling for a station break.
Real quick, Scott, just before we do that, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
The way he was embarrassed multiple times, he could talk about Brian Flores today until the end of his life, and I would have no problem with it. It's the NFL. If you watch, which we all watch tons of NFL games, you don't see starting quarterbacks benched regularly in the third quarter or the fourth quarter unless it's a blowout, or there's an injury. That happened to him multiple times in the same season as a young quarterback. That
Right.
that can destroy his confidence in his development. So if he wants to talk about Brian Flores every day, as long as he comes out and plays good football, I have no problem with it. Go all out,
Well, it's a valid point. By all means, let's face the reality. Thing I'll say about Tua, at least last year, he played all 17 games. Bear in mind, there was no Ryan Fitzpatrick, last year. You didn't need him, but let's face the reality. Tua's injury history doesn't help him either. When he was drafted into Miami, so you needed a capable backup quarterback, and you were fortunate to even have Ryan Fitzpatrick on the roster. Yet, to me, the Dolphins won't mean anything until they prove that they can win in February and December and January. Now we'll just see whether Tua can own up to the contract extension that he has. But Joe, you make a very valid point, so I have no doubt about it. But now we'll see that he's being paid all this money. Can he keep consistency and stay vertical? So, all right. But thanks for bringing that up, Joe. Off to Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last November called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It was written by none other than our host, Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. The foreword was written by George Eichhorn. It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the media industry and how media has changed over those 40 years. Great read, great stories. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. There is a link to it on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can get this book. There's a link to our clothing store where you can get all kinds of merchandise. There is also articles written by Scott, George, and JB, pictures by me. And then there's lots of plethora of different transcripts from the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Lions. We have a lot of colleges sending us sports stuff, especially here in Florida. We have the Florida Gators. We have the Miami Hurricanes. We have Florida State Seminoles. We have FAU Owls, USF Bulls. They all send us information. So go to our website, check it out. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us with all of your friends and family. We talk Monday nights, Fire Up Florida, hockey. Then we talk 108 Stitches baseball talk, baseball. Tuesday nights is Inside the Pigskin. We talk all kinds of football. Wednesday nights is what you're listening to right now is Sports Exchange. You never know what we're going to be talking about, normally about sports-related topics, though. And then Thursday nights, Fire Up, anything goes. You just never know what we're going to be talking about on that program. Preceding this tonight was the Motor City Madmouth Show, where Scott does one-on-one interviews with people. Tonight he talked to George Richards, who has been covering the Florida Panthers for 20 plus years. Go check it out. Twitter is @Tribune South. Our email is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. You can rewind and listen to this again, or it's been scrolling on the bottom. Back to the program, Scott.
All right, Candy, well done. Every now and then I like to throw a topic, whether it's news or not news related, news or sports related. And this one really came across as really inspirational. So I want to wish a very inspirational rest in peace to a woman by the name of Branyas Morera, the world's oldest person, who died last week at age 117 in Spain. I repeat, 117 in Spain. She was the 8th oldest person with a verifiable age in history. Joe, I'm working as hard as I can to get to 62. This woman made it to 117. My goodness. I mean, really. This is unbelievable, isn't it? 117?
That's amazing. Hopefully they were, good most of those years, because that's a long time.
What could you do in 100 years on this planet, man?
I don't know. I'm up for 400 or 500. I'm okay. Let's do it. Sign me up.
Oh, I love it. I really, really enjoy your positive attitude. George,
Well,
117 years. Well,
that's a
that's why this
long
topic
time.
made the big show because we still are talking numbers, but a different kind of numbers 117.
Yes, that is quite a milestone, no question about it. I have a dear aunt of mine who turns 101 in early November. So it is a very remarkable feat. Anybody who hits 100 and over, but 117, wow. She's probably outlived everybody in her family, but hey, she's got a wonderful life she probably led, and I'm sure she took good care of her body and her food and drink consumptions and things like that, because that is really something special and remarkable to live that long. So hey, hats off to her and to her family too, and everybody that has known and met her.
Okay, Candy.
So she was an American born Spanish woman. She was born, let me see what it told me. I was looking at the article. She is survived. Her survivors include her two daughters who are 91 and 82 and many grandchildren. She suffered hearing and vision loss in the recent years. She still had no indication of cancer, heart disease, or any other mortal illnesses. She also never showed signs of dementia. She was born before the emergence of the telephone. Think about that.
Yeah.
And she came all the way to embrace digital revolution, including her fashioning herself on social media even. She said that she did nothing special. She actually has memories of D-Day and the invasion of Normandy. She was actually born March 4th, 1907 in San Francisco. She grew up in several American cities, including New Orleans, where her father, a journalist, started a Spanish language magazine that actually went bankrupt. She has just a long interest. She said that she didn't do anything special. The only things that she did say is she's never smoked and she did exercise moderately. She was a survivor of war and various hardships, which she thinks has helped her stay alive as long as she did.
Yeah.
But kudos to her, because it sounds like, I mean, if you're gonna live that long, it sounds like she was all with it. I never want to not be with it. So kudos to her.
Amazing story, folks. Like I told you, if I think it's interesting, I don't care what show is going on, but most likely it hits this one, the Sports Exchange, anyways. Hey, more power to this woman. I've never ever gone out there and changed anything, but to me, I live every day as were my last. And as Candy will probably tell you, that probably might be a reason why I generally meet my insurance deductible in February, but who cares? I mean, but this woman here, unbelievable. 117. Let me get to 62, 65, but unbelievable. 117 years old. That to me is a lot of life to be considered amongst the eighth oldest person ever in the world. And we're talking about the world, people. That's what we're talking about. All right. Well, you know what? We'll move on from the world's oldest person to college football because we have that coming up this weekend. Candy Ebley and I will be traveling up to Gainesville to see the Miami Hurricanes take on the Florida Gators, but we'll let Candy comment on this last because I'm sure she probably would like to wait to see what everybody else. Or do you want to talk about first, Candy? Pick your.
Nope, it's okay. Go ahead.
Joe, what game are you looking forward to this weekend?
Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I think, I want to see how good Notre Dame really is, and I think this is a great test to start the season. Having to go on the road there. They have a tough fan base. They're loud. They get into the game. and it's a hostile environment for Notre Dame, who everyone always expects to be a top, top school. And their schedule isn't that tough this year, so this is a must-win for them.
Okay. George?
Well, for me, of course, it's going to have to be Michigan. Michigan hosting Fresno State Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. on NBC. Everybody in the country will be watching to see how the Wolverines do in their first game without Jim Harbaugh as coach, and the first game in several years without J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback. A lot of question marks on Michigan. A lot of people wondering if they can even, hang in there with teams like Ohio State and Oregon, and the new Big Ten look this year with the additional teams, and then Michigan, of course. The Fresno State is no pushover, and then later on they got a big game with Texas that's on the schedule. But first things first, the big crowd Saturday night, U of M. I think Michigan will come out on top, but it's going to be an interesting game because, like I said, a lot of new players, both teams, but especially on Michigan, a new head coach, and we'll see what kind of new wrinkles they might have offensively and defensively as they try to defend their national title.
What about you, Candy?
So obviously you already let the cat out of the bag that, yes, we are covering the Miami Hurricanes at the Swamp, Gatorland. It is the last of the big stadiums in Florida that I have not been to, so this will be the last of my first here. I've been to the Jaguars, the Buccaneers, the Dolphins. I've been to the Hurricanes. I've been to USF. I've been to FAU. I've been to the Marlins. I've hit all of those stadiums. I hit the ones in Orlando as well. So it's the last of the big ones. So that obviously is going to be the game of the week for me. The game of the week that might be for a lot of other people that they might be looking forward to, I would say, would be Clemson, Georgia, because we're talking 14 against a 1. So 2 nationally ranked teams. So that'll be interesting as well. But definitely for me, it's the Hurricanes and the Gators.
Well, I'll go Hurricanes and Gators, but you know what? I feel, number one, I'm just happy for you that you're going to be able to go on the field, because the look on your face when you're on that field will remind me a lot of when you were over covering the Lions and the Packers over at Lambeau Field. But you know what? That's an obvious choice, but I'm going to throw a little interesting nugget out there locally. Florida Atlantic visits Michigan State at Spartan Stadium. This is Tom Herman's second year is what it is. And I'll be very, very, very curious to see whether or not the Owls can go out there and improve on last year's performance. I think they were like 4-8 anyways. Tom just trying to get his footing here after going behind Willie Taggart. So a lot of interesting games over the weekend. But yeah, of course, I'm going to say Miami and Florida is the lead one, because now Mario Cristobal is in year 3. Is this the year that Mario Cristobal returns the Hurricanes to prominence? Because once upon a, don't sleep on the Canes. They've won 5 national championships in their history, but haven't sniffed that territory in a little while. But FAU and Michigan State should be interesting as well. So, all right, so let's go to our parting shots. Okay, Joe, lead off.
All right, so, Florida State, travel to Ireland. I don't know if they got on the plane. They didn't get on the plane. But give credit to Georgia Tech. Last year, Georgia Tech started to actually play football again. They were in a bad tailspin for years. They got a new coach. They changed the whole system. They used to run a power football run option. That's all they did. They changed their offense, new personnel, new recruits, and, playing more streamlined of what we watch as college football now. They travel to Ireland. They beat number 10 Florida State, who may still be wondering why they weren't in the playoffs last year. But this year, I don't think they're making it now after that loss. But give credit to Georgia Tech and Florida State. Way to back up your argument that you belong, because, national televised game, first game of the year, to a team that nobody respects, you got beat.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go next because of Joe coming up with this one. Last night on Inside the Pigskin, our one of our analysts, Coach John Bonamago, who was on our Inside the Pigskin every week, coached all over the place. He was a head coach at Central Michigan, but he's coached everywhere else. Really went ahead and had a rant for the ages because against FAU. The show is titled Graduating versus Winning, and you can find that on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. But you know what Coach Bono said? He said a lot. I don't want to give it all away. And Candy's going to work on a short with it. But he pretty much said to Florida State, you know what? You played poorly in the bowl game, and then you had an opportunity to make a statement, and you didn't do it. So he had no sympathy whatsoever for Florida State in those areas. But I don't want to give it all away. But Coach Bono's done a really good job on Inside the Pigskin, as has Melfar, Bo, Crouch, and Travis. But Coach Bono, in the time that I've had him on for about a year now, has progressed nicely to a point where he's not afraid to open up. At the beginning, he had to be careful because he certainly didn't want to put himself in harm's way of getting another coaching job. But the reality is this, okay? I'm going to piggyback off of Joe. Florida State, you had an opportunity to make a statement, and the college football playoff is 12, okay, this year. Last year, you weren't good enough to be in the top four, and yet when the bowl game came along, the final score was 63-3. Pretty hard to convince anybody that you're national championship worthy. Okay, George.
Well, my final parting shot is going to be the Detroit Lions. So all along we were told that Nate Sudfeld was going to be the backup to Jared Goff. And even a lot of people were not comfortable with that here in Motown. And then, of course, they got a good hard look at Hooker in the last exhibition game that they played. And he did some good things and a lot of things he still has to work on. But in the meantime, they went and picked up Jake Fromm. Again, another veteran who doesn't seem to be able to stick with any team for any period of time. So I was just a bit surprised that they ended up cutting Nate Sudfeld because he seemed to be the odds-on favorite, at least for the number 2 quarterback. But now they're saying Hooker and Fromm is on the extra roster that they have for the players. And I tell you what, everybody just has to cross their fingers and hope, if you're a Lions fan, you don't want Jared Goff to go down. Because for a team that's so highly rated and one that is favored by many to be in the Super Bowl, they're sure taking a chance at quarterback. And I know Goff has demanded and got a great salary and a great increase in pay, which he deserved. They just better hope nothing happens for a long period of time with Goff because of the uncertainty behind him. And, again, it's just a little gamble. Some people would say maybe too much of a gamble the Lions are taking as far as the backup QB goes, but time will tell. It's just interesting to look at how Sudfeld fell out of favor, and in comes Hooker and Fromm. That's it.
I've never seen a parting shot in all my years in this business where we're talking about a second string quarterback, especially when the pickings are slim, really. But because I have to watch voice issues, I can't sit here and let you have it. But I'm going to say this in a very, very subtle way. Are you crazy? Really? You bringing up Nate Sudfeld in this show? Really? You know what I would advise you to do, George? Get Drew Stanton on as a guest, and maybe he can take the job. He's about the last legitimate backup quarterback the Detroit Lions had, Drew Stanton. All right, I'm not going to come hard on you. It's a parting shot, so I can't. But I'll tell you what, I can turn over to Candy. I'm waiting for hers.
So I hate to be, because you left me for last, and I'm going to say this. Rest in peace, Cohen Craddock. And if you haven't heard of him, I understand. He was 13 years old. He died after receiving a head injury after playing football this past weekend. He is the third young kid that has died so far this year already due to football practice, either in middle school or in high school. So far, before even Labor Day starts, there has got to be, with all the technology we have in this world, we have got, and I love football, don't get me wrong, but we've got to find more technology that protects these young kids so they're not sustaining head injuries like this at such a young age. I get it. A lot of us love the game of football, but there's got to be something done for these young kids so that we can protect them, because to die after practice, and he was at practice, he had a collision, he got up from the collision, he was walking off, and he collapsed again. His family is donating his body body parts so he can live on through other people. But somehow we've got to come up with something better for these young kids, and anybody that makes fun of or that discredits anybody that's trying to protect themselves with these new caps, these guardian caps that they're going to have on to help them protect themselves. Kudos to them, but there's got to be somebody out there that's got the technology or that's smart enough to come up with something better to help protect, so these injuries and these type of injuries stop happening.
Well said. I don't have anything that's going to top that one. I'm not. So, great job, Candy.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you know what? Opportunity for everybody to let everybody know how they get a hold of themselves. Joe Ellis, go ahead. Lead off, please.
JB_ the program on X. SidelineSportsNet.com is the website. Candy built it. It's for Sideline Sports. You got articles from George and Scott, myself, the rest of Sideline Sports. Candy has some great pictures on there. Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Confidential every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Actually 8 p.m. Eastern. And obviously here, and you never know where else.
Good. All right, George, go ahead.
Yes. So I'm under the South Florida Tribune website as well as JB's website. Under the Motor City Tribune, my columns, and at the end of each column, I'll have a little link there if anybody's interested in the book I wrote, which is Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, with the likes of George Kell, Al Kaline, George Blaha, all kinds of. Oh yeah, Candy's got a picture of it up there by her picture as well. Thank you, Candy. So you can find me here on 108 Stitches. You can find me on Fire Up and find me on the Sports Exchange. Also look for me on Twitter at SanGSports99, at Yahoo, at gicorn at yahoo.com, and at LinkedIn as well under my name. Great being on with all of you tonight. We had a really good show, a lot of serious but very important topics. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to really describe what we put together tonight. Nobody likes to talk about a manager fired through social media. I think that's, I understand that Joe's right. I mean, the guy's getting paid, but still, there's other ways to find out. And that wasn't it. Of course, how do you not go ahead and reach out to Mrs. Morera for being around a while? And too, well, everybody has an opinion on that. And of course, let's not forget, we got college football this weekend. So with that said, Candy, take us home.
So, the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. George has a copy there. I know JB has a copy. He might not be showing you it, but he's got a copy too. And so do I. And so does Scott. So if you don't have one, you got to go out and get one. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, Apple, and on Kindle if you are one of those ebook readers. We also have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where everybody on this panel has written at one point or another, or me. I just take pictures because that's better, more up my alley. Look for pictures to come for the Florida versus Hurricanes game coming up this weekend. If you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify. Monday nights, we talk Fire Up Florida. We talk hockey. Then we talk baseball, 108 Stitches baseball talk. Tuesday nights, we talk Inside the Pigskin, any kind of football. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange. You never know what we're going to talk. All kinds of different related topics. Thursday night, we talk Fire Up. Anything goes, really, except for religion or politics. But Tuesday nights, you can also find me on 3 Chicks and a Pod or Chicks and Salsa, whichever we're doing. Typically 7:30 Tuesday nights Eastern time. Scott, anything? If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. Hit that red subscribe button. Visit everybody else. Everybody that contributes to our station or our channel, go contribute back, give to them. Go either sponsor them, go subscribe. They all give their time up to us, so please go back and reciprocate. I think that's it, Scott.
Yeah, I want to thank JBL does a really good job helping us spread the content on Twitter. Much appreciated, Joe. Again, you're in the book too, so that's why you had to really read it. And I know you gave us a good review on it. George did the forward. I encourage everybody to watch Candy's show on Thursday night, Fire Up. She does an unbelievable job with the cast of characters that she has. So,
and we're gonna be introducing a new segment on the show tomorrow night. So watch and stay tuned.
There you go. She's got her own show and does a marvelous job. So meanwhile, I won't be on tomorrow night. Candy will. I want to wish everybody a happy Labor Day weekend. Very safe. Enjoy the college football. Before long, you have the National Football League coming up a week from now. So Candy and I will be in Gainesville. Everything goes according to plan. She will have hit a milestone. Proud that she's able to get to that milestone. And I'm always looking forward to getting back to Gainesville or any place I can go to. So meanwhile, on behalf of Candy Ebling, Joe Ellis, JB goes by, and George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. We'll catch you on the next edition soon. Take care, everybody. And once again, thank you very much for joining us. Good night, everybody.
All right.